At 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Christina, do the roll call for us, please.
Yep, Fish, Johnson, Cole, Lawrence, Marso, Steen, Mayor Buck.
Here. Okay, we've got the agenda. Any additions or corrections? Then I'll look for a motion on the agenda. Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We've got the minutes from the May 1st, May 5, and May 12 meetings. Any additions or corrections there? I'll look for a motion. Motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the claims on pages 14 through 16. Had a chance to look all that over. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
I will move to approve.
Motion and second to approve the claims. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We've got the consent calendar. We have a wage adjustment for Tammy Vanderbeek on page 17. We've got 4 plats to approve. Any questions, comments?
Second.
Motion second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Visitors and timed items. This is an opportunity for anybody that would like to discuss anything with the council, whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda. If there's something that's on the agenda, you might want to wait until then, but you can do it now. It doesn't really matter. We ask that you come up to the podium and state your name and address, and we limit the comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. So is there anybody that would like to address the council now? It's up to you. There's a button there.
My name is Erin Taggart, and my address is 1900 West Tyler Circle in Brandon. And I come here tonight not just as a citizen, but as a parent and someone who believes that we have a moral obligation to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Brandon is known across South Dakota for exceptional schools. The Brandon Valley School District is ranked one of the top schools in the state. And that's not by an accident. It's because we hold ourselves to high standards. We invest in our children, and we prioritize our health, education, and well-being. That's why I'm urging you tonight to vote no on the proposed rezoning that would allow a cell phone tower to be constructed less than 125 feet from the property of Robert Bennis Elementary and the intermediate school. This isn't just a land use decision, it's a public health decision, and more than that, it's a moral one. There's growing scientific concern about the long-term effects of EMFs, especially on our children. The World Health Organization has classified the type of radiation emitted from the cell phones as possibly carcinogenic to humans. A 2018 study by the U.S. National Toxicology Program found clear evidence of cancer in animals exposed to levels of radiofrequency radiation similar to what towers emit. Also, a 2018 study in the American Journal of Men's Health found high exposures of radiofrequency electromagnetic fields produced by mobile phone base station towers settings adjacent to school buildings was associated with delayed fine and gross motor skills, working memory, and attention. A 2010 environmental review, it was a review of 100 studies, and found approximately 80% showed biological effects near towers, found headaches, skin rashes, sleep disturbances, depression, increased rates of suicide, concentration problems, dizziness, memory changes, increases rates of cancer, and tremors in populations near base stations. A 2020 study in environmental research found a large and growing body of evidence that human exposure to radio frequency radiation from cellular base stations cause negative health effects. The author recommended long-term planning to minimize the risk of liability from unintended human harm to cellular phone base stations. And they recommended that to be within 500 meters, which would be 1,640 feet from our school or hospitals. There was also another study, it was a 10-year study in Brazil on cell phone antennas, found clearly elevated risk of cancer mortality at the same distance of 500 meters. So that's 1640. And this tower is proposed to being built from the property line about 125 feet. To the school might be 250, 300. So with all due respect, I want to ask each of you directly, are you willing to vote yes to rezone this land, knowing that even one child might suffer long-term effects because of that decision? Even one child getting sick, one family living with the weight of that outcome, it's too high of a price to pay. Because for the families who are affected, that one, it will be real, it will be life-altering, and it will be permanent. And the close-knit community of Brandon, that person might be your neighbor, a cousin, a coworker, or a friend of a friend. And that's not a burden no community should carry. We don't need to wait for absolute certainty before acting. That's what the precautionary principle is all about. If there's a credible risk and we have the power to prevent it, we should. We follow the same principle with food safety, water quality, playground equipment, so why wouldn't we do the same for radiation exposure near a school? I'm not the only one speaking out. Other parents, teachers, even healthcare professionals have voiced their concern about this tower. Many of us have signed a petition that we have here tonight. Some are writing letters, others are sitting quietly tonight, trusting you'll do the right thing. We are the voice of the people who elected you, and we are simply asking you to put children's safety ahead of corporate convenience. We also understand that we need to be connected. We're not against technology or progress. We can have both, progress and protection. If we work together to find a more appropriate location for this tower, one that doesn't put it so close to where over 900 kids spend most of their week. So we have an opportunity tonight to send a clear message that Brandon protects its children, we lead with caution and care, and we don't gamble with the health of our youngest citizens. Let our decision here reflect the values that earned our school system the #1 spot in South Dakota, not just for academics, but for integrity, foresight, and heart. Please vote no on this rezoning request. Thank you for your time, service, and commitment to the community.
Okay, thank you, Aaron.
I also have a list of references for research articles I'll give to all of you.
Do we have anybody else that would like to address the council? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Sherry Schmidt. My address is 601 West Bachelor Lane in Sioux Falls. I'm here today on behalf of, or I'm reading a letter written by my daughter-in-law, and I'm here as a grandma as well. So this, I can't take credit for this letter. I can only hope I can do justice reading it. It is from my daughter-in-law, Chandra. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, it is with utmost respect and humility that I urge you all to vote not to rezone the parcel of land across the Robert Bennis Elementary in order to be used for a wireless telecommunications tower. The research being presented to you tonight with regards to the numerous effects that EMFs can have on individuals, including sleep disturbances, ADHD, and even cancer, is very valid and should not be cast aside simply because more research is needed. In fact, with the mindset studies should have to prove there are no potential effects at all before this is even considered being put near our children, our teachers, our support staff, and homeowners in this area. The World Health Organization classified radio frequencies, electromagnetic fields, as a possible human carcinogen in 2011. We may not, at this time, be able to prove without a shadow of doubt that these types of magnetic fields have these negative impacts that we are talking about tonight, but we are also unable to prove that they do not. So the idea of putting something adjacent to a school that could negatively impact our children's health and learning is very concerning to me as a parent and many others as well. Leap before we look is never something we should consider when it comes to our children. This is coming from a mother whose 5-year-old daughter is currently undergoing chemotherapy after being diagnosed with a rhabdomyosarcoma tumor last summer. If all goes according to plan, and God willing, she's enrolled in kindergarten this fall at Robert Venice Elementary. Some of you have children and grandchildren, so I'm sure you can relate to that feeling of wanting nothing but their safety and protection. From a mother who constantly wonders if something in her daughter's environment is to blame for her having to fight this horrific disease, please do not make me have to wonder if she will relapse every day she is next to something during school that has been shown to have correlation. My daughter is just one person, but there are so many more in our same situation. It's far more common than one thinks and is increasing every day. Although there are a multitude of factors that have likely led to disease, I 100% believe we should strive to minimize what we can, and that includes keeping EMF emitting devices at safe distances from our schools. This is not an anti-progress nor an anti-technology rant. The hope is we can find a different area at a safer distance from the schools, for the tower. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. Sincerely, it's my daughter-in-law, Chandra Larson, Doctor of Chiropractics, and a concerned cancer mama. Pound Amelia Strong.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Megan Penning. I live at 1301 South Fernwood Avenue in Brandon. I'm here today to voice my concerns for the proposed placement of a cell tower at 108 West Park Street. I understand the agenda item today is simply to rezone the property from NRC to GB. However, the sole purpose of rezoning this property is to allow space for a wireless telecommunication tower, so I will be addressing that today. Changing the zoning to general business for any other purpose does not make sense anyhow based on the size of the property and the area around it. To learn more about this proposal, I've spent time watching the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings that date back to November 7th, and the following are a few of my concerns. First, at the November 21st meeting, the Commission discussed the city's current setback requirements and determined they do not allow enough room for a cell tower to be placed at this location. They also discussed the necessity of setbacks as a falling concern. My concern here is that the Commission failed to address the location of this tower in regard to our city sidewalks and streets. They spoke about the distance from the tower to the school, but there was no discussion of the 100+ cars, the school buses, and the kids walking and biking to school that occur twice a day for 9 months of the year. This is a congested area. We are driving 15 miles an hour, bumper to bumper with other cars, and often stopped at this corner for stoplights. I have pictures of the location during school drop-off to share with the council when I'm finished here. This land is also yards away from a retention pond and is a location that saw damage from straight-line winds years ago when winds took down the fencing in this very spot. I don't know if yearly maintenance would be enough to ensure that the structure would be sound and safe for the people who live and go to school in proximity to it every day. My second concern is that alternative locations have not been fully explored. At the November 7th meeting, the commission briefly talked about other locations, but made no plans to continue that discussion. At the March 20th meeting, they discussed city parks, but dismissed the idea. And I found it very strange that city parks are off the table when it comes to cell tower placement, but a location where our children will be spending the majority of their day for years is being seriously considered. It seems that the commission took Mr. Snyder's word that the search had been exhausted and this was the only feasible option. And therefore they moved forward with attempting to make the space fit the needs of the tower. I think it would be in the best interest of the city to get a second or third opinion on site locations that would best serve the needs of our growing city. The focus in these meetings has been solely on serving the south side of Brandon, and we are unlikely to see growth on this side of town. It is the east and west sides that are seeing growth. We should be planning to optimize the reach of these towers by exploring land that would cover a larger span of the city. Adding a tower to the very edge of the south side wastes much of the span over farmland and does little to support the growing areas of Brandon. Huset's was brought up in these meetings as the biggest beneficiary of improved cell coverage. Even in the mock-ups from elevated towers, you can see that the site name is called Huset's Tower. I would encourage the city to look past this selling point. Huset's is not the entity requesting the cell tower, and they've declined putting one on their own property. I don't believe they should be used as a reason to instate one at this location. They also only operate a few days a week from May until August, and it's unfair to ask the homeowners in our neighborhood and the parents of students here to take the risks of living and going to school near one every day for the benefit of their business. I'll also make the point that there is in fact coverage on the south side of Brandon. This is not an immediate need that we need to rush to solve. We have time to explore the options that would allow for better coverage while also protecting the integrity of our schools and residential area. My third concern is that Elevated Towers has a financial interest in making this location work for a tower. This is not a consultant firm or a company hired by the city to explore options. This is a company looking to expand their business, and they found a location with the path of least resistance. As such, I don't believe Mr. Snyder and his staff should have had input or influence into updating our city ordinances as they have to make this location work. I hope the city will be thoughtful in considering why the past ordinances were set as they were and only make updates after thoughtful research and consideration. Of course, my main concern in all of this is maintaining the health and integrity of our neighborhoods, schools, and all who live, work, and learn here. On a personal note, my family has made our home here, and we are invested in the community. We will have at least one child attending RBE or BVIS for the next 12 years. I have serious concerns about a cell tower's unknown long-term health effects, and I'm not willing to send my kids to school every day for the next 12 years and hope that everything will be just fine. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to share my concerns.
Thank you, Megan. Anybody else like to speak to the council? Come up.
I'm Katrina Buffington. My address is 47605 Searle Street in Sioux Falls. I am a parent of 4 children who will attend BVIS in their childhood. Although my children attend Brandon Elementary, I have many friends whose children attend RBE, and they are part of our community. And so I am addressing the cell tower that is proposed to be built across the street from Robert Benner's. And I have also sent this email to many of you already, but in case you did not read it or need a reminder, over 30 countries have 10 to 100 times lower limits than the allowed limit to exposure to radio frequency radiation, or they do not allow cell towers to be built close to schools and hospitals because they learned how it negatively impacts living things. The United States currently meets the FCC regulations for radio frequency radiation exposure. However, other countries have continued to research this impact of this level of radiation on humans and wildlife. After findings found such a negative impact on just things like bees and birds, India decreased its limit to 1/10 of its original limit from the FCC. Over 15 countries, mainly in Europe, have stricter limits for magnetic field EMF for sensitive areas, such as around schools and hospitals. Specifically those two things, because of the people that are around there are still developing or have decreased immune systems. We need to take a look at the research to protect our children from these negative impacts of increased radio frequency radiation and its health risks. Close proximity to cell towers can also negatively impact children and school staff, causing severe headaches, fatigue, dizziness, and cancer. Dr. Leonard Hardell is an oncologist and professor at a Swedish hospital researching environmental factors that cause cancer. He wrote a paper with Mona Nilsson, a co-founder of Swedish Radiation Protection Foundation, regarding a student whose school was near a 5G tower. So they just did a specific case study. And this student developed severe headaches, dizziness, fatigue at school after the cell tower was constructed and had to use things like wear a helmet to prevent the radiation. So although this is not every student is going to undergo these things, certain students are more prone for this, and also just having these things decreases their ability to do well academically. Close proximity to cell towers also decrease students' ability to do their best academic work, with memory, attention span, and motor skills declining. Another article in the American Journal of Men's Health studied two different groups of students, one school with higher exposure to radiation from a cell tower than the other. The paper concludes that the students in the school exposed to higher radiation had a decline in spatial working memory, attention, and fine and gross motor skills. Numerous studies cited in this article have findings that close proximity to 5G towers have correlated to worse performance on short-term memory tests, impaired concentration and focus, tiredness, hormonal disruptions, increased anxiety and depression, among other symptoms. We have one of the best schools in the state, so why will we put our students' health and academic ability at risk of declining and jeopardizing that status? According to numerous websites, Brandon Valley is the #1 school district in South Dakota. However, with the building of a 5G tower emitting harmful radiation so close to two of our schools, this will negatively impact our students' lives in two ways: how they're feeling, if they're dizzy, tired, have a lack of concentration, headaches, and also decrease their ability to do well in school, like their short-term memory, their spatial working memory, and motor skills, lowering the Brandon Valley school success rate. In conclusion, why will we disregard the well-being of our children and school staff and allow this cell tower to be built across the street from our schools? This puts our loved ones in our community at risk for higher radiation for 7 or more hours a day, 5 days a week. Not just our children, but the teachers and the staff. Let us join together to prevent the construction of a cell tower on this land, putting the safety of our community above our ability to get 4 bars of reception on our cell phones. Please seriously consider this risk over the reward of allowing a cell tower to be built across from Robert Venice Elementary. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Katrina. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is John Penning, and I live at 1301 South Fernwood Avenue in Brandon. I'm here to present a petition to the City Council signed by more than 150 people urging the city to relocate the proposed cell tower. The purpose of the petition is to inform Brandon City Council that citizens of Brandon do not want a 5G cell tower placed at 108 West Park Street. The location is a residential neighborhood and set less than 500 feet from RBE and down the street from BVIS. We ask the City Council to explore alternative, safer options that do not put our city at risk or disrupt our neighborhoods. Please be aware that the Brandon Valley School District did not inform parents or current students nor staff that this issue was coming for a vote at City Council, so there are likely more parents and members of the community who would oppose this had they been informed. I also want to state that the purpose of the NRC district is to preserve lands best suited for natural drainage, public open spaces, and protect from floods, erosion, protect views, and preserve natural settings. I encourage the council to go look at this area and physically see it because it is a wide open space, and putting a 120-foot cell tower right at that location is going to stick out like a sore thumb. It's not going to be a good view for Brandon in that area. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. I did ask for some feedback from leadership at the school, and I didn't get any. It's possible maybe, I just sent it on Friday, so maybe it got missed or something. But just so you know, we did ask. Or I did ask. Sure.
Well, I also reached out to the superintendent, and he was unable to oppose it or be for it. So that was the response that I received from them.
Okay. All right, anyone else want to speak to the council? Seeing none, we'll move on. We go right into the public hearing, and our first public hearing is on the rezone ordinance for ordinance 732 to rezone the West Park property. Thoughts, comments from the council? Oh, Patrick. Yeah, excuse me, I didn't see it.
Welcome everyone down to City Hall. I'm Patrick. I'm the Development Director with the city. I agree with you all that this is an important issue we should talk about, so I'm glad we're here to do it. So, to provide a recap of history up to now, so ever since I started with the city in 2022, we occasionally do get an inquiry from a cell company, whether it's a tower builder or a carrier directly. We get one probably every 6 months. So a lot of them, since this is kind of the first one that's crossed a certain threshold, a lot inquire, not many follow through. So we've been speaking at a staff level with Elevated Towers probably for the majority of 2024. The first meeting we've talked about process and all that kind of thing. So they have submitted a conditional use permit application that is currently tolled pending the outcome of today. Right now, a cell tower is a conditional use in the general business district, which means should the property be rezoned, they still have to go through the conditional use process. It is not a permitted use in the NRC district, so if the rezone doesn't go through, arguably it's not a permitted use. There's still a federal process that they could go through if they can prove a significant gap in coverage and no feasible alternative. Then they could override local authority potentially. So our first meeting at Planning and Zoning with Elevated Towers was on, as was said, November 7th. We've talked about a variety of things for what seems like many, many meetings. So during the course of that time, we've looked at 300-foot standard specifically is what people seem to be interested. What we deal with at a city level on the 300-foot standard is federal law. The Federal Telecommunications Act prohibits it mandates that a city may not prohibit or effectively prohibit wireless coverage. So that becomes hard because how do you apply that to real life? It's easy to write on the page, but how do you apply it? So P&Z talked about it, and is 300 feet a prohibition or effectively prohibit from residential? If you look at the map of Brandon, that's a whole lot of residential, and there's not much left that isn't. So that's what's P&Z's consideration. There are two members of P&Z here if they wanted to speak to that as well. But so they got to thinking, is 300 feet an effective prohibition? They took a conservative approach and said maybe. So they reevaluated the number that is currently an amendment with an effective date of the 21st of this month, May 21st, would reduce the 300 feet to 1.1 times the height of the tower. I use reduce, but I mean, conceptually, you could have quite a tower and 1.1 times the height could be more than 300, but that would be quite the tower. So, and that 1.1 times the height is a separation distance from the base of the tower to the property line of the residential use. So that's kind of where we are in the process. P and Z had their rezone application on this item on April 17th. They recommended adoption. So for a rezone, what we kind of look at the city level is it's a public policy decision made by our elected officials. For a rezone, you more look at the broad uses of the lot. We have a lot of people that come in and say, I want to rezone it for this purpose. Some follow through on that, some don't. What we look at a city level is you have a whole list of uses that are permitted uses and conditional uses in your zoning code for the GB district. We look at the suitability of that piece of land for those uses. We look at the size of the land, its location. We look at all sorts of things about the land itself. So the lot that they're talking about, 108 West Park Street, is 0.014 acres. It is a small lot. Maybe it's 0.14, maybe 0.14, but it's a small lot. It's 0.14. So it is currently NRC. They are requesting general business. Their stated purpose in their application was to construct a cell tower. If it were rezoned, they would unlock the list of uses. A cell tower would be one of them. Could they put up a gas station or something else on 0.14? I don't know. It unlocks the uses. The conditional use stuff comes later. So as far as compliance with whether it makes sense to rezone, Maple Street is designated as an arterial street on our future land use map in the comp plan. For the city council members, there's a P&Z folder on your desktop. Most of them should have the comp plan in it, unless one of the P&Z members removed it for some reason, if you want to look at the comp plan. But it does note for Park Maple specifically that improvements will be required for it to be a true arterial street, and that would require cooperation with Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. So a lot of arterial streets, by their very nature, are generally probably okay for commercial. We try to keep commercial out of our local streets, but broadly speaking, arterial streets are generally okay for commercial, not getting into the specific lot itself, just broadly speaking. So there's the broad consideration of the appropriate lists of the permitted and conditional use for the lot. Obviously, 0.14 in practical reality limits the application. So on the future land use map in the comp plan, commercial is not specifically designated for that parcel. Commercial is, however, located across the road, kind of where it goes around the corner on Sioux. And that's land owned by Huset's. That's mostly designated as commercial. But this particular lot is set as institutional just because of the use on it currently, I imagine. But right now, as well as in the future land use map, there's not commercial land designated across from Brandon Valley Elementary, the middle school, or the future Berkman School. However, it is across from the high school, if that provides you some contacts with GB next to residential. Ultimately, it kind of comes down to a public policy decision on what you see as broadly zoning speaking, as the vision of the Park Maple Sioux corner for future development. So one thing to mention, and Lisa can correct me if I am mistaken. So RF admissions are a very complicated area of federal law. There have been numerous court opinions as well as FCC rulings that RF admissions are solely governed by the FCC regulations. Court opinions have said that local boards, for better or worse, are not supposed to base your decisions upon them. So, that being said, I get there are concerns with RF admissions, so whether or not this board, your concerns may be better addressed to your state and national representatives, because they would have the power to change the FCC rules. But that's kind of the current state of the law on the FCC, on the RF regulations. So ultimately, whether to rezone or not comes down to a land use decision at the city council level. So I will turn it over to you and anyone else with some comments on those points.
So Patrick, with what you just said with the federal law, if we if we vote against this, are we voting against federal law? Are we in violation of federal law?
If you vote against it,
If we say, because
Yep.
they're saying that shouldn't be a consideration.
correct. I would base, in order, and this is where Lisa can supplement, is you would want to base your decision on the scope of land use and zoning that's provided in the zoning code.
So did
For
you,
better or worse, that's the court that's been set for us.
so did, you said the land across the street is already zoned at commercial, so.
It's not currently, it's currently NRC, but our comp plan, we set out a future vision of how we think and ideally the city would develop, and that kind of around the Sioux Boulevard bend there is designated as, should develop as commercial. But this lot itself is not, it's kind of, it is technically a spot, whether it makes sense zoning wise to rezone it or not is the policy decision.
So, Mayor Buck, I just want to say, I need to recuse myself from voting on this issue because of a conflict of interest on this.
Right.
But Lisa, I want to clarify, can I still speak and ask some questions related to this? That's okay? Okay. So just a couple of questions there, Patrick.
Yep.
Number one, I see that there's already a building there. What is that building that's already located there?
Alliance uses it for something, I'm not sure, I imagine they keep equipment and other things there.
Okay.
But I have not specifically asked them what's in the building.
All right. Then, another question, so, you just hear things, right? But are there other 5G cell sites, located near schools currently in Brandon?
In Brandon, I don't believe so. Our two cell tower sites are the water tower on Holly, as well as there's one in 9th Street in the industrial park. Otherwise, those are our cell sites there. One example that came up routinely during the planning and zoning meetings it's Ben Rifle Middle School in Sioux Falls. They have a cell tower on the lot with the school.
But the ones on
But
the.
there's not one in Brandon.
The ones on the water tower are not 5G?
I don't believe so.
And then just to clarify some of the questions and comments that were out there, did the city have any say or any input in helping the vendor locate this potential site there? Or was it just solely done on their own dime?
We do not provide input. They submit an application and we review the application as submitted. So we don't input into whether that's the right site or the wrong site. They submit their application and we review it.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Were other options explored, knowing that there was a cell tower provider looking at building? Are there other options?
Prior to the company that elevated towers, we had heard from some. They just spoke generally about the southern area of town. They never mentioned a particular site. Whether they have told us that they did look at other sites, and they mentioned a few. We don't have background information to confirm whether or they have or the length of their inquiries.
So Randy, excuse me, I serve as chair of P&Z, and so I did specifically, Joan is here. Joan has been at a lot of our meetings. He's with the tower company, and he said that they had talked to a variety of places. I struggle with that a little bit. Sometimes money buys more than, so I'm not sure if there might be some other options available. My concern is what Patrick alluded to earlier is the spot zoning. And there can be an argument made that there will be commercial on that curve and, it all goes together. But at this point, there's no contiguous GB district to hook onto. And I don't think that there's going to be a GB district in that corner because it's too small. So it'd have to go across the road, which is residential. It's not going to go to the school, so it'd have to go up around the corner. And planning and zoning was comfortable with that. And I don't vote at planning and zoning, and I try to support planning and zoning. but that is a concern of mine, that it's a spot zone.
The nursery, what is that zoned at?
General business.
So there is general business that's right next to the school.
Correct.
I'd love to hear from, if somebody from the cell tower company would want to come out, I'd love to hear from them a little bit.
Thanks, Patrick, and thanks to the City Council for taking some time to talk with us. I'm Jonah Snyder. I'm with Elevated Towers. My address, I live in Sioux Falls, 5313 South East Wind Avenue. Yeah, like Patrick mentioned, we've been working with the Planning and Zoning Commission for almost a year, working on a tower site. Previous to us, there's been several other companies that have attempted to build a tower in Brandon. But because of some of the notes that Patrick mentioned, it's been very challenging to build a tower in Brandon, largely due to the fact that it's largely a residential community, and because of the setbacks laid out in the Planning and Zoning Code, being at 300 feet, made it effectively impossible to find a lot that was large enough and far enough away from residential land to be able to build a tower in a zoning district that qualified. So we've been working through some of those challenges. A little bit of background in Elevated Towers. We build towers around the state of South Dakota. We're really focused on areas that are suburban and rural that are underserved from a connectivity standpoint. So we build towers in different areas that just don't have reliable service. Oops. If you pulled out your phone, it probably depends on what carrier you have, but I've been coming to these meetings for a long time. I get one bar in this building. South side of Brandon kind of struggles with that. But the reason to build a tower on the south side of Brandon isn't only related to just whether you can send a text or make a call. As a community gets to this size, there's kind of two considerations with cell phone towers. There's geographic reach. So, a tower might be able to cover 5 miles or something like that from that standpoint. But then there's also densification. So Brandon has 11,000 residents. There's probably other people who come here for work and for other reasons. And right now you guys have 2 wireless sites. You have one on the water tower, and you have one that was built in the late 80s, early 90s on the north side of town in kind of an industrial lot. To just for some comparison's sake, 2 other communities similar in size, Brandon and Harrisburg, both of them have 3 wireless sites right now. Harrisburg, just as an example, they have a water tower, actually similar to this community. It's right in the back lot of their high school. That is one of their wireless sites. You guys also, one of your 2 sites today is a water tower, and it's right next to the high school, and it is a 5G site. In addition to developing towers through Elevated Towers, both me and Craig, one of the other owners that's here tonight, we work with Vicor Teleconstruction, a business based in Sioux Falls. So we do the installations, the maintenance, all sorts of things, and touch towers, hundreds of them every day with our crews. So we're pretty familiar with the coverage and the carriers and the technology and all of that. The reason we're building this tower is to just continue to support the growth of Brandon. In the same way that you guys need water lines and gas lines and run electric to build a community, we think in the modern time, connectivity, being able to place a phone call, being able to connect to the internet, being able to send a text, stream video, these are something that are generally important to people in the modern time. So I'm very happy to answer any questions. Just to kind of build on what Patrick said, I'm sensitive to and genuinely respect the opinions of some of the residents here tonight. I think this is a great example of municipal government working. People can come and make their voices heard. I could probably provide a lot of research to you on why I don't necessarily agree with the views that RF emissions are a health concern. And ultimately the ones who regulate that are the Federal Communications Commission, a federal body that's nonpartisan. And in the Telecommunications Act, signed in the 1990s, they ruled that you cannot prohibit the construction of a tower or the placement of a tower based on concerns about RF emissions or on aesthetics. So it's probably not the place for any of us to debate whether or not this tower should be built on the basis of RF emissions based on that federal regulation. So happy to answer any questions. Oh, I guess let me address the search. Our search was fairly exhaustive. Like Patrick said, we're not the first to try. We have the benefit of being based in Sioux Falls. So I was able to make a lot of drives out here, meet with landowners, come to planning and zoning meetings every other week for 6 months, and put in that effort that some of our some other peers that are regionally or further based just wouldn't have been willing to make that investment. So just as one example, one challenge of the south side of Brandon as you guys might know, is the south side of Brandon has Native American burial grounds. And as you get closer and closer to the, what's it called, Landscape Garden Center, I think, it becomes nearly impossible to do much and develop that land because the national NEPA concerns around building a tower. When we file to build a tower, it goes through a federal process, so we have to do a NEPA review of that, and they would not allow us to build a tower on that south, just outside of town to the south. We did look at that with the owner of the land with Landscape Garden Center, and after reviewing it with our environmental team, it didn't pass review, and so we weren't able to build a tower there. We did also look at several parcels east of the lot that we're discussing here tonight, and met with some landowners out there, and they just don't provide the connectivity that the carrier that we're representing is looking for. So like I said, proximity is a big deal. If you think about cell service, if you drop a pebble in a pond, you get tighter and tighter waves, and then the further you get out, the poor reception that you get and the less ability to serve a community. So yeah, I hope that you guys, and I recognize the position you're in here tonight. You've got a lot of people with different strong opinions, and I guess I would just hope that you see your role as representing the 11,000 people in Brandon that are excited about the development and the growth of the community, and also hear and respond to the concerns of those who maybe aren't as excited about this. So happy to answer any questions.
Have you guys done any 5Gs, constructed 5Gs next to a school before?
Yeah, so Ben Rifle Middle School is a great example of a school that's recently built, has a cell phone tower on the lot. In the time that we're in, almost every single tower in America now is 5G. The exceptions would be extremely rural sites. 5G launched back in, I think, like 2019, 2018. So it's been 5 or 6 or 7 years. So since that time, almost every wireless site in America has been upgraded to 5G. So that's pretty much just the standard for wireless technology at this point.
So, gentlemen, one of the concerns was just simply the safety and security of a tower that size in a residential and a school neighborhood, a congested traffic spot, right?
Sure.
Can you talk about how you secure the tower to manage inclement weather, bad winds, South Dakota weather, right?
Absolutely. Towers are some of the most rigid and sturdy structures that are built. They're built to withstand 75, 100 mile per hour winds with inches and inches of ice on them. We have extremely high regulations requiring towers to be almost indestructible. If you go to a community that has hurricanes or tornadoes, towers are generally some of the last things to fall. This tower that we're talking about, is going to be something close to about 100 feet tall. And so the risk of it falling and hitting the school or any adjacent building is just not existent. Yeah. And so we're not concerned from a fall standpoint that this tower poses any risk to the community.
You mentioned ice. I've heard of other towers have an ice fall. Is that a concern? Large chunks of ice coming down 100 feet, hitting things?
Sure. Icefall is generally more of a concern on, there's kind of 3 different types of towers. There's guide towers, which are skinny towers with lattice members that have big cables that go out to anchor points out in the field. There's self-support towers, which also have lattice members that cross. And then this is what's called a monopole tower. Because it's a solid, cylindrical structure, there's not as much opportunity for ice to accumulate and fall. That being said, ice can fall off of towers, but we're going to have this fenced in, and based on the setbacks that are required from the lot line, it's not going to blow across the street. And we put what are called ice guards or ice shields over anything that's on the ground within that lot, so that when ice does fall, it just doesn't hit anything critical. It's a fair question.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Other comments from council, from staff?
No, I just have the zoning map up there for those that are curious. The green is NRC. In the lot is right here, so that's NRC. And then the white, yellowish, light yellow is residential, so the schools are residential, or R1. These are R3, and then there's R2. Down here is Oak Ridge, and that is GB. Just so you have a visual on that.
Okay.
Mike Totes, 500 East Mayberry, RFD Street, Brandon. Just a couple of quick things. I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and just a couple of things. The reason why we were looking at general business, that building that's currently there actually doesn't fit. It's non-conforming to the NRC. It's too small of a lot for NRC, and the setbacks don't fit for NRC, so it actually fits better in general business. That's kind of why we ended up landing on general business for this purpose. A couple other things. Gentleman said, it's a big lot, wide open space, and it would stick out like a sore thumb, which I can't argue with that, but that's where you'd want a tower. If we can't put towers near buildings, and we can't put towers in wide open spaces, we kind of run out of options. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we were coming around to the idea of a tower in that space, is because it is a wide open space, that it's a drainage area to the west of there, so nothing else is going to be built there. So it does suit the need for this pretty well. As you get south of Casey's in Brandon, if you zoom out a little bit, you'll see that pretty much everything south of Casey's is residential. So we run into a problem with, if we have to stay outside of residential and we want to have a coverage area there, where do you go? That's kind of one of the hurdles that we're dealing with. When someone approaches us at planning and zoning with something, we look at what they're approaching, and we ask questions, and we can ask them to look at other things, but we can't do the leg. We're not there to do the legwork. Go find another site for them. This is the site that they came to and asked us about, and we've been working on it for 6 months. But cell towers are more or less a necessity. People working from home and other things. Cell towers are really a necessity, and if they came to us with a better spot, if they had 3 options and one of them wasn't next to a school, I'd probably take that. But we have residential, and that's kind of all we have on that side of town. So we don't have a lot of other good options, and that site worked really well. They showed us lots of different examples, and I'm the first to say that when someone says, this is how Sioux Falls does it, I'm the first to say, well, we're not Sioux Falls, so I get that. But we do look at Sioux Falls because they have a lot more staff. They do a lot of the legwork. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. When Sioux Falls is doing something, we can look at it and say, well, we like it or we don't like it. But Sioux Falls has cell towers right up next to buildings, 20 feet from buildings all over the place. So that's not what I would like to see. We're a couple hundred feet away from any structure. When they came to us, they wanted us to go 1.1 times away from a structure, and we brought that back from the property line. So we have brought it back quite a ways, and if you go any further, you really work yourself out of options. So would love to have a situation where nobody was affected by this, but this was kind of what we ended up with. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for me, but that's kind of how we got here.
Any questions for Mike? Thanks, Mike. Anyone else to speak to this issue?
Have we had issues with connectivity in this area? I mean, I don't live very far from there, and I don't.
I live 905 South Fifth Avenue, so I mean I'm pretty far south, and we don't have any issues. But that doesn't say that growing community we may down the road. But
and I agree with that.
Any other comments from the?
I guess I'd kind of get going here. My sensitive, because I've got 3 kids, all go to Robert Menace, and soon are going to be transferring into intermediate school. You say that you want to be nonpartisan in this issue, but reality is reality. You can read things like a lot of comments have said about what comes from cell phone towers, but then you can read the other things that nothing comes from it. But I come from a standpoint of like, I don't want to risk anything if it has anything to do with my personal kids. But then I look, like Barb said, more than anything, if we take all things aside and we think if this is strictly, which it is, strictly a rezoning of a property, I just don't like this small little chunk that we're all of a sudden going to say, this small little chunk, when I say small chunk, it's 0.14 acres, when everything else around it is NRC. I just don't like that one little area. And then we're human beings. We know what they've told us what they're going to put up here. So it's like, I don't like that a cell phone tower is going to go there, and I don't like that there's a little bit of general business all surrounding NRC. So I'm leaning towards denying this.
Any other comments from the council?
If I can ask a question of Aaron. In all the studies that I'm assuming that you read a lot of these studies. I've also studied some of the pros, some of the con. How far, or how close is too close? How far away do any of these studies talk about distance? I mean, it's roughly what, 400 feet from the 400 to 500 feet from the tower, where the tower would be, to the school, and then you have the additional shielding of the building itself. But how close or how far?
A lot of them said 1,000 to 1,500 feet would be a safe zone from schools or hospitals. The hard thing with this, I know it's about I think Patrick told me it's about 100 feet to the property line. So I would have to measure exactly from that property line to the school, and how far, I'm not sure how far that exactly is, but I know I think he said 95 feet to the property line of RBE.
Yeah,
And
I did it on Google Earth, and it's about 400 feet to the building.
to the end of the south side of the building or the north side?
North side. To the south side, it's considerably further.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion.
One correction, it should be Parkview, not Westview, track 2 Parkview, not track 2 Westview in the ordinance for the legal description.
I would make a motion to deny this.
Motion and second to deny the ordinance, ordinance 732.
I'll do a roll call vote, Mayor.
Roll call, please.
Can we do discussion?
Sure.
So,
Barb, go ahead.
so I was just gonna say, so deny means we're not passing it, a yay would mean we deny, right? So.
Did you second to bring it to a vote, or?
No, I'm voting that way.
Okay.
And I, P&Z have spent hours and hours, and we really need to be grateful to them for all of the work they do.
Mm-hmm.
But in this instance, I wasn't able to voice my opinion earlier, but I feel that it is spot zoning in my mind.
I guess that's what I wanted to hear, because I've been part of Park Board and with the Ironwood extension and those kinds of things. I very much respect the work that the Park Board does, and those people have been on that for years and years and have looked at things that I haven't even thought of and hadn't thought of in those meetings. And that's why I stuck with them. I personally believe that way too in that instance. So hearing you say that, who's been at more meetings than probably the rest of us combined in this city on planning and zoning and park and council meetings, that holds weight with me.
well, don't take it that way. I still don't get out. Rob is here, Mike is here, and they spend hours on this, and I don't even know the lingo yet. But, you know, they showed the map, and I believe that at some point that will be commercial, but it's not at this point, and so I don't know if that's our place to decide that or not, but.
And just for verification or validation, the park or the planning and zoning
Voted to
passes
pass.
unanimous?
And mentioned before, it could be commercial across the street from it. They could put a tower up there anyhow, right? I mean, once it's zoned commercial. I mean, so location isn't really the issue to me right now. I mean, we can't stop it if it gets zoned commercial across the street, so.
Yeah, this is only a rezone. It's not a still, if you pass the rezone, P and Z would have to give them a conditional use permit. So there is another step.
So we're not voting for a cell tower, we're voting for the rezone.
And the motion is to not change the zoning.
The motion is to deny the ordinance. So when I do a roll call, if you vote yes, you are denying the rezone,
Correct.
okay?
Keeping it at the
Correct. NRC.
NRC
Yeah.
current zone.
Yes would be to deny, no would be to,
Take your time, Randy.
yeah?
This is a big deal.
Okay,
Go ahead with the,
are we ready? Barb, Fish. Johnson. No. Cole.
No.
Lawrence is abstaining. Marso.
Yes.
And Steen.
Yes.
So we have a 3-2. I will let. Motion passes.
okay. We'll move on. The first reading of ordinance 733. Patrick, can you give us any information on that?
So Van Buskirk's, the owner of the River Park Development, have requested to rezone a couple of 4 different tracks that are currently general business to R2. And there is someone from Van Buskirk to speak to that.
Okay.
Jordan Hefner with Van Buskirk Companies out of Sioux Falls. Address is 2571 Southwest Lake Avenue in Sioux Falls. Here to request at this meeting for a continuance on this matter. We heard what planning and zoning had for concerns, and we are readdressing the zoning, so, or the replat. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have a motion, or suggest a motion to continue the public hearing until the June 2nd council meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Motion second to give it,
Yeah.
to continue the,
Continuance of the public hearing.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thanks for
being here.
coming out, Jordan.
We don't have any old business, so we'll move to committee reports. Golf course, we have a seasonal hire on page 51.
I'd move to approve. Second.
Motion is second to approve the additional hire for the golf course. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Parks and Rec, we've got the work report. Aspen Park grading proposal from DGR.
This is to develop plans and specs so we can bid out a grading project to be split between the park department and stormwater to grade all of that land, basically from the detention pond south to the hockey parking lot. There's a big pile of dirt there now, and it's pretty rough and weedy. get it graded. We also wanna talk about possibly putting gravel in where the old RC track was to expand the parking area.
Yep.
So, DGR submitted a proposal for $59,433 to develop the plans and specs.
I'll look for a motion. Motion and second to approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Pool staff, good news.
Good news. We are fully staffed. This will get us up to 29 lifeguards. So you do have a list there of the additional lifeguards. And then we do have a bunch that got certified for WSI so they can teach swimming lessons. So those wage adjustments are at the bottom portion of that. We are doing paperwork tomorrow night. Training will start Wednesday and pool open Memorial Day at 1 o'clock. Weather pending, because I noticed there's rain and cold, but.
And Mayor Buck, I again need to abstain from this because one of the lifeguards has my last name.
I do.
This might change some things.
I'll look for a motion to hire the pool staff. Motion and second to approve, the pool staff. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we got a quote to replace the surge tank.
Yep, the existing surge tank is original. All the parts of it are original, and most of them are gone, rusted away. So it's in dire needs to be replaced if we want the pool to keep operating. So they're planning. The plan is to start work after pool season, and then they'd finish whatever they don't get to next year before pool season.
All right, we'll look for a motion on that.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks. Public safety, we've got the ambulance report on page 68 and the police, police intern. We need to approve.
Correct, you need to approve the intern, for workers' comp and liability.
All right. Motion and second to approve the police intern. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we got the fire department has asked us to share the cost of a new heating system.
Correct, their in-floor heating is broken in approximately at least 3 places. In order to repair it, they'd have to tear up the floor in the apparatus bay. So they received 2 quotes. The one in the packet here is from Prairie Sons for $56,495. The other one was about half that. They're somewhat different systems. I think the Prairie Sons quote is a little more high-tech, less interference with the apparatus in the apparatus bay. I also included a copy of the current lease contract that we have with the fire department, paragraph 6 on page 73. It is the fire department's responsibility to repair and replace any systems that fail as the tenant.
Discussion?
So we provided money also to the chamber, ambulance.
Correct.
Do we do any of these kinds of things for them? Is there any history of this?
We do not. We contract with the fire department for fire services. About 300, and I'm just using some round numbers, about $300,000 in operations, maintenance, and equipment. It's split fairly evenly, about 150, 160 each. So we do pay for operations.
We're currently paying for that.
Correct. Yeah. So this would be in addition to.
I knew the answer, I just wanted it out there.
Yep.
Yeah, we pay for the loan on the building as well.
Yeah. So our actual contribution for the fire department is about $365,000 on an annual basis.
One of the considerations here said that we started to look into other options that were more financially responsible. What were the price estimates on those?
I think the other one that gave me, and I couldn't find it, was like 27,000.
As compared to 200,000 to 300,000.
Yeah.
Do we know if they have it in their budget to cover it?
The last financial report that we have, they have adequate reserves to finance it. They've got about $1 million in fund balance.
You know, I kind of look at this as, again, we kind of went through our budget, just recently, and we didn't have this in our budget for this year. And, you know, again, you look at point number 6, that we don't typically take care of that. So, I mean, I guess I would consider it maybe next year when we're in budget constraints, but we've already kind of gone through that, and I guess I would lean towards denying it for this year. But if they want to come and maybe look, maybe we can give them some help potentially next year when we're looking at budgetary things.
You want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to deny.
Motion second to deny. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Administration, we've got a block party, application. 7,800 block of Copper.
Correct. All of the affected property owners that would be affected by the street closure have signed off on the application.
Okay.
I would move to approve. Second.
Motion and second to approve. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Then we have resolution 0825. Request to waive sidewalk replacements in Aspen Ridge.
Great.
Good evening, council. My name is Russell Atkins with Christian Development Partners. I live at 8304 South Timber Oak Circle in Sioux Falls. Our company is developing Aspen Ridge, and things are going well. And as we're out there, we are in a partnership with the city on a TIF district, and as a result, we're building 64 townhomes on the R2 parcel south of Casey's and south of the multifamily site, north of the villa homes being built by Doug Allen. And in that, we're going through the process of getting the DEP approved. A point of information would be when we first started this process and we went to Planning Commission, we had, in essence, 3 rows of townhomes from south to north lining up with one private road serving the most northern row of townhomes and the middle row, and then we had the southern townhomes that would back out onto East Christensen Street. Planning and zoning shared some concerns with having that much traffic backing out onto East Christensen, and so we elected to redesign the site so now we have 2 east-west private roads serving those 64 townhomes. East Kellen Place, I apologize for the spelling, that's my daughter. It's an Irish name meaning princess, and she lives up to every bit of that. And then we got a single loaded street running east and west on the northern property line, East Amy Place, my better half. So that northern private road running east and west serves townhomes on the south side. Because of adding the extra road in here, we ran out of a lot of space. And so currently the East Amy Place private road has been submitted without a sidewalk on the northern side. The northern side would actually be on the apartment parcel. So the staff, during review, staff has kind of let us know that for the most part, sidewalks are on both sides of streets, whether they're private or public. So we can appreciate that. We feel a little bit in this particular instance that the cure might be worse than the disease, in the fact that if we shorten up the driveways on the townhomes to allow for a sidewalk on the northern side, we actually take a 21-foot driveway and reduce it down to 17 feet. In doing so, a truck like mine sticks out into the sidewalk such that people walking along the southern area where all the residences are located would then be kicked out into the private road. Feeling that that is an unsafe condition, plus as the developer of the overall community, who's taken a lot of time and energy into pedestrian walkways, We've got 12-foot shared use pathways throughout the community. People walk all around. We love it. We love the feel. So that is important to us. But here, we feel having a sidewalk on the north side where there are no residences and no connectivity would be worse than forcing that sidewalk and pushing people out into the private road. So that's kind of in essence the reason for the request. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions the council has.
Russ, I was just wondering, what will be on that north side? What is track 2? And will there be any traffic coming out of there onto Amy?
So the property to the due north of East Amy Place is the multifamily parcel that is being developed, and I believe they're at almost 50% open space. If memory serves me correct, I think that's just open space.
So, Brian, why has this come to the council instead of going to planning and zoning?
The sidewalk ordinance requires sidewalk to be placed on both sides of either a public or private street. In the DEPs, like Mr. Atkins indicated, they're at the staff level, can't approve them because it doesn't have sidewalk on both sides. However, the appeal process is to come to the city council directly for an appeal to waive the sidewalk requirement on the street by resolution. So that's what resolution 25 would do. We as staff can't do it. It has to come from the council.
So, Russ, I know that you have spent an inordinate amount of time in this development. I appreciate all your work. I guess my challenge with this is when P&Z came back and said that we needed that another access, did you just run out of space? I mean, is that our problem, so to speak? I mean, can you tuck them back farther? I don't know anything about construction, but I'm struggling with that.
Sure. You know, the alignments of the curb cuts along Chestnut were part of the original plan. Lot sizes, setbacks, easements, and all of that they make the site kind of tight. So by adding that extra, what would it be, 30-foot, 35-foot easement for private roads kind of really pinched the site a little bit. We still feel that it's the best call. I like the idea of everything self-contained within the townhomes. We've gone from 70 units to 64. I can also tell you of the 24 that we're trying to get under construction, 19 of them are sold. So a lot of people like the idea, they like the price point, they like all of those things. We're just running in against a space issue for that sidewalk on the north. And again, there are no residences on the north side of that road. There are no driveways. There are no access points. We've got 1, 2, 3 more sidewalks running east and west, tying into 12-foot wide sidewalks on the east side and on the southern side of the project. So I feel we've got pretty good pedestrian flow, you know, for the units that are there. I really don't want to have a driveway where someone can't park their truck.
Yeah, and I get that. I just don't want to set a precedent where we have sidewalk only on one road. Is there any way for P&Z to look at this, or we have to deal with it? And I'm not trying to hold things up. I'm really not.
I don't want to deal with it either.
You could refer back to P&Z for an opinion, but it's legally not required. There's no requirement for P&Z to render an opinion on it.
Staff have an issue, Tammy have an issue?
Yeah, engineering department recommends keeping the sidewalk on the north side.
So Cairo's Place is pretty similar to this. They have short driveways and they have sidewalks. I don't know if you've been in that
Okay,
area.
so I'm gonna talk about Cairo Place just real briefly because I got a new puppy dog, so I have an opportunity to walk. And Cairo Place has got the short driveways, and when I was walking down there, out in the street, back in, out in the street, back in, I mean, mean, there had to have been 6, 7 trucks on both sides. I look at this plan, I know that it's kind of like an open field almost across the street. I would prefer that the sidewalk be clear rather than having the pickups parked on them, so I would support this. Now, if there were houses on both sides, yeah.
Right.
I would, but
I looked at some real quick numbers, a site plan that they've submitted for the townhomes that would be built on these lots. The lots are about 135 feet deep. Now, Russ and his partners don't own track 2. That's been sold to somebody else. So it'd be fairly difficult to get an easement, a sidewalk easement, from the property owner to the north. So in essence, if you wanted to add the sidewalk on the north side or keep it, the 34-foot wide utility and private road easement would probably have to expand to 39, which would push things south. And my quick look at it, it's going to be very, very tight between the proposed townhouses of 55 feet and meeting setbacks. It's going to be like at 0. There isn't going to be any room for somebody misplacing the foundation. Which
Never happens. Never happens.
So, it's a 15-foot front yard setback required from the sidewalk. And then I think it's about a 55-foot deep townhouse and then a 25-foot rear yard setback. So it gets really tight. Good luck.
So I think Brian maybe just answered my own question here, and I'm not a developer, so I don't know how easy this is or anything, but can you just move the road design? If the road hasn't been built yet, can you slide it north in the design?
I would love to slide it north, but it's literally up against the property line. So the Veldco, who's building the apartments, that we don't own. Right.
But there's no way we could work with the other owners to put a sidewalk there.
Well, a couple of things, ideas anyway. Russ and his partners could certainly talk to Veldco and see if they would put one in. The city does have a process that the city council can require an adjacent property owner to put in sidewalk adjacent to a street. And then, if, once we send them the notice, city council makes the determination the sidewalk's necessary, we send the notice to the adjacent property owner, they can either put it in, or if they fail to do so, we can do it and special assess the cost back to them.
I mean, the reason I wonder, I live in Country Club across the road from you. I'm old enough to remember when there weren't any houses out there. So the first 12 lots don't have sidewalk. Still don't have sidewalk. I mean, once they get developed, trees get, we just can't get sidewalks there. So it'd be a lot better now, I think, to work to try to get a sidewalk in that open lot. I mean, to me, it seems doable.
Are there garages on these places on East Amy Place?
On the south, yes, sir. On the north, it's a single loaded street. So there's only residences on the south side where the sidewalk is proposed. On the north side is the property line to the open space of the multifamily site that, to the best of my knowledge, has no pedestrian traffic on the south side. It's all open space.
Is it just the back of the building, Russ?
Yes.
That would be the back of the apartment building?
Yes, but quite a ways away.
Okay.
And again, on private roads, we don't maintain the road. So like, they're doing their own snow removal. We're not, right?
We don't maintain it, we don't do snow removal, we don't patch, we don't slurry seal, et cetera.
And that'll be the only place that we run into this. I mean, on
That's the only place.
Kale, is it Kalen?
It's Kellen.
Kellen.
Yes.
Kellen.
Yes.
Okay. There's sidewalks on both sides of that one.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's also like I said, a 12-foot sidewalk on East Christensen Street on the south. And there's a 12-foot sidewalk to be installed once these curb cuts are in on the east side of Chestnut, west side of Chestnut, east side of this project. The apartment development, correct. So our East Amy Place, correct. Sorry to interrupt.
I guess I kind of lean with Dave a little bit on this. It just seems kind of, if we're putting a sidewalk on that side of the road, I mean, I love we need sidewalks in this town, but if this is a private drive and there's no other townhomes on this side, and it's only backing up to these apartment complexes.
They can put some trees.
That must be really dense. I'm not getting it. Can you put that one up? Put that one up, please. 'Cause I'm not getting this. Obviously. Maybe Dave can explain it. I get that. That's on this side right here. That's on that side. Okay, yeah, right here. Yeah.
Russ, do you know if there's any plans to put it, for the apartment buildings, to put up any fencing or anything like that, or just leave it all open space to the world?
I think they're pretty low density. I don't think they plan on doing much there to separate.
So off of East Amy Place, they do come into garages there then?
Yes, we have
Okay.
roughly 23 townhomes planned on the south side of East Amy Place,
Okay.
which will have garages there. And then we were planning on the driveways for those 23 units being 21 foot deep, which would allow visitor parking and surface parking for those units. So having, like, my wife's Acura would fit just fine
Right.
on a shortened driveway. My GMC would not. And then, so that would in essence make me not be able to park in my own driveway. Either that, or I'm forcing people out into the private street that are walking their dogs when they get home.
Each residence has one garage spot? Two.
Well,
they're double garages.
They're double garages, and then so we're redesigning for some 3-car garages on a lot of the units, which is why it went from 70 units to 64, and those are the ones that are pre-selling pretty quick.
You get where I'm going, Colin and Dave? Most of their cars are going to probably be in the garage. That's where I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. Okay.
Well,
And if I
go ahead.
remember correctly from my police experience on private drives and things like that, we don't necessarily enforce blocked sidewalks, do we? I didn't.
But I see what Russell is saying, though. If you've got a larger vehicle, right, and a lot of people do have larger vehicles now, having these shorter driveways, organically, they're gonna end up parking in the street, on the curb, and
These
impede
garages are
traffic.
20 by 20. My truck does not fit in a 20 by 20, which means I'm parking outside. Right now, if I lived there on East Amy Place, heaven forbid my wife kicks me out, but if she does, that might be where I live. And my truck parked there would push somebody into the street.
And
Further impeding
yeah,
traffic.
and I understand all that. I guess my concern is it's the developer's problem. Sorry, Russ, but you know, I don't know what caused us to be short, but I don't. If they came for a variance at P&Z, I don't know if there would be an extenuating circumstance to justify a variance. So that's where I'm coming from, and no offense to you, Russ,
I get
because
it,
you've done
Barb.
a great job.
I guess why I'm leaning towards allowing this would just strictly off that all these are gonna be on the south side, you know, and the north side is gonna be butt up to whatever's going on in track 2 there. Which is potentially, if Velco's gonna be building these, and is in the process of building those. Yeah, has. And so, I guess I don't have an issue. I like this look. I love that in Brandon, I appraise homes all over Sioux Falls and Harrisburg, and there is a ton of these private developments that have 0 sidewalks at all. And the fact that we're forcing them to at least have 1 sidewalk, to me, is awesome for our city. So I don't have an issue with that. I would much rather have it this way that they're proposing, where if they are parking a truck in there, that people aren't walking in the private roadway.
Okay, I think we've had plenty of discussion.
I'm gonna make a motion then. Can I make a motion?
I'd like to have somebody make a motion on resolution 0825.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the waving of the sidewalk on the other side of the street.
Motion and a second to approve resolution 0825. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. We'll move on. Streets, got the work report on page 80. And East Ironwood Extension Project, contract with DGR. We'll need a motion to approve that.
Correct. DGR submitted a proposal that we requested to finalize the plans and